Hi, everyone. Veronica, foster mom, back with you for another Chronicle. Now, if you've been kind of watching my timeline, you do know that it has been quite a while since I had published a video, and that's several reasons. Yes, busy, but primarily it was because these next series of chronicles are actually going to be of um, our most recent placement. Um, uh, our three siblings, and they have now been moved to their pre-adoptive home. I'll get to that in a moment. But I really wanted to wait until, instead of chronicling their time with us, I wanted to wait until they were actually in their forever home, and then so that I could come back and hopefully report to you. Well, report either a good news story, or even if, sometimes unfortunately it doesn't work out, but I wanted to report either way. So I do have a good news story, but like I said, I'll get to that in a moment. So this chronicle is actually P's chronicle. P is the youngest of the sibling group, and I picked her up from the hospital. Like, she was about 5 days old, and yeah, we got the call from DCS, and they said, hey, can you take a sibling group of three? And, as I told you, I always go to my husband and to my family and say, hey, do you have any objections to this? And they all were super excited, especially when I told them that there was an infant. But one thing to keep in mind about infants that come into state custody is, and I may have mentioned it in another video, but a lot of times when we think of babies, we think, oh, this cute, sweet little baby, and this healthy, chubby little baby. When children come into state custody, it is highly likely that the child was drug exposed, as was the case with P. So she was actually very thin. She cried a lot. She had that typical high-pitched, what we call NAS, neonatal abstinence syndrome, that NAS cry, which is typical of babies who've been born drug exposed. And but so again, you have to kind of weigh that. If you are a foster parent who says, I only want infants, I only want babies, you do have to consider the fact that it's not the, rose-colored, typical healthy baby that we would be used to coming in contact with. But again, well, first of all, backing up, I actually went to see P when she was in the ICU, NICU, and I would hold her and rock her and feed her and change her diaper, just really started to bond with her. And so that was on day 4. And then by day 5, she was ready for discharge. And so brought her home, and just super, super special baby to us. She, as I mentioned, she did cry a lot. She didn't sleep a lot. Now, I'm sure most of you know newborns, especially the first few days, like, they sleep, right? And so, but P did not. Like, she was constantly awake. There were even times when I would, check her on it through the night, because I was just hyper, just really, I wanted to make sure she was breathing. I wanted to, I was just like really paranoid about her, just knowing all the drugs that she had been exposed to while her mom was carrying her. And I would, like, just put on a dim light just so I can check on her, and I would look, and like her eyes are wide open and she's looking around, like, so but she wasn't making that much noise, so a lot of the times she was just laying there with her eyes open, just looking around in the dark. So I found that kind of interesting. um so there were several kind of funny, sweet things about her. Everything about her was sweet, though. I guess I should have started by saying she ended up being with us for 3 years. So when I talked in a previous video about loving and releasing and how hard that is, when you've had a child for 3 years, like that takes that grieving process to a whole nother level, right? As I'm sure you can imagine, because you've bonded with that child, they've bonded with you, they are a part of your family. It was another one of those instances though where I prayed, God, should I adopt these little girls? And, can't say that the clouds parted and I heard this, loud, clear answer, but I did feel in my heart that the answer was no. So then I just began praying for their forever family. But going back to P, during the time she was with us, she was a delayed walker and talker. So she had speech therapy, which is kind of interesting. If you've never been involved with it, until I started fostering, I didn't even know there was speech therapy for a 1-year-old. Like I think she started when she got into the therapy when she was about 1 year old. And she also had, as I said, the delayed walking. So she had some occupational therapy. And it was just a really interesting. But one thing that's just kind of funny, um, my husband called it the combat crawl, because she didn't really like get on her knees and hands and crawl like you would see babies typically do, but she would use her hands and then just kind of scooch. She would scooch forward like on her belly. And so I called it the inchworm. So but she got around. She got pretty quick at it too. As a matter of fact, one quick story. We had one of our sons was living with us at the time, and so he would go to work, and as soon as he would come home from work, he would go find her. He would find, where's P? And she had a little toy. I'm sure you've seen them. They have the handle on it, and then the child is supposed to stand up, and then like it rolls as they walk to try to encourage them to walk. And so she had one of those. She did not like it. But my son, every day he came in, he was like, where's P? And he'd grab her and he'd put her on that thing, and then he'd have her like pushing it across the across the room. And so she's like pushing this thing, and sometimes she would look like she's so tired, but she wasn't even doing it long. But it became like a routine for him. So like every day, he'd come in, where's P? And he'd put her on her little, trainer, to try to encourage her to walk. After about 4 or 5 days of this, when she would be, like on the floor, just playing or laying down, whatever, when he would come in the door and she'd look up and see him, she would like turn and then the little inchworm, she would hurry up and try to get away from him. Because she knew it was her walking time with her big foster brother. So that was like one of the cute, funny memories that I have of her. Um, Something else about her is this child, like from the moment she was born, had what we ended up calling the angry eyebrows. So she would, for those who can't see the video, maybe you're doing podcast or whatever, like she had the furrowed brow, like the scrunched up eyebrows, like all the, I won't say all the time, but most of the time, that was her face. And for a while, the first few months of this, we thought it was because, she's angry, or even though we called them the angry eyebrows, angry, or like, concentrating, just whatever, just something negative. But one time we had her on a swing and we were watching her, and she had her eyebrows, her angry eyebrows, and I could see her lips moving. And I'm like, well, what is she saying? And so we were like pushing her. But then I kind of went over to her and got down close to her and put my ear near her, and I heard, we. So it was at that point we realized that the angry eyebrows didn't mean that she was really angry. It was just, her expression. So, um, Aside from that, as I mentioned, she was with us for 3 years, so definitely a little girl that has a special place in our hearts. And so I do hope at some point she is able to go back and look at this video. And so going back to the angry eyebrows, I actually have like probably 50, and that's no exaggeration, about 50 pictures of her with her angry eyebrows just over that 3 year period, just different photos. And I'm going to make a collage of her so that she can see, so she can have that memory of herself. Just intense child, I guess is what it is. So as I mentioned, after 3 years, it was time for P to go to her forever home. So she is adjusting. One mistake that I made was, so this family, lovely family, and they've agreed to allow us to remain a part of the girls' lives. But one mistake that I made was asking to see them. And it was probably about maybe 2 weeks of them being gone, maybe probably less than that. It was probably a week. And so I did meet the pre-adoptive mom, and she had P, and she had one of the other girls with her. And when P saw me, like she like just stopped and just ran over to me and just hugged me, and just like grabbed me and started whining. Like it was like I could feel how happy she was to see me, and I held her, and it was very like that. Guys, that broke me down. People who know me know I'm a little, I have that more tougher exterior, not a very emotional person, but this broke me down. But I did, sit with them for a while, and then it was time to go. She cried, but that made me realize that it was too soon, right? So she still has that attachment with us, and she needs to form that bond with her new family. So as tough as it was for us, and I know that it's tough on her, we know that in the long run it's for the better. So we're giving it a little bit more time. She's going to bond with her new family, and then we'll reintroduce ourselves into the picture, and it'll be a different dynamic. It won't be where she's thinking, wait a minute, why aren't you taking me with you? She'll know, no, these people are my family, but I will go visit with Miss Veronica and her family. So, as I mentioned, though, the grieving process is very real. There's times where I've cried. There's times when things have triggered a memory, and I broke down. And again, don't let that deter you from being a foster parent. Like that is normal. It's a part of the process. If I didn't have those emotions, then that means I didn't bond with those children, right? And I didn't love them. And I'm not a robot. we that's just not the relationship that we're supposed to have with the children. So I say that to say, yes, you may have those emotions, but you'll get through it, and there is joy on the other side. And I know that within a couple of months, the adoption process, I almost said finalized, so it probably won't be finalized in a few months, but it'll be close to getting that process, getting started on that process. So super excited for P. She's just a beautiful child, very inquisitive, kind of rough and tough too. When you're the youngest child, you got to be able to hold your own. So she's definitely that. But and she was super attached to my husband. Like for the first year of her life, it was me, right? Like I'm the one who would visit her in the hospital. I'm the one who would feed her, the primary caregiver, so I will hold her on my chest. And so she did bond with me, but something flipped at about the 1 year mark where she would follow my husband around. They were joined at the hip, and that was her person. And so it's definitely, it was definitely a challenge for him too with the transition from our home. But again, we know that it's for the best, and we're super happy, very, very appreciative that we're going to remain a part of their lives. So that is Peace Chronicle, and I hope you join me again for another one. Thank you.